she did a wonderful job organising this. The work that we do is sometimes funded through government grants. The funding rate at the moment is around 12%, which means for every 10 grants we submit, the law of averages is that we're going to be told it's no good 9 times. So it's very, the foundation do a wonderful job for us, and the philanthropy that comes from the public is so appreciated. We can't convey that enough, because without the support of people within the community, I wouldn't be standing here. I would be, I don't know, maybe in jail, who knows. Probably not, but maybe driving a truck or something. So I just want to introduce Julia and thank all of our foundation for what they do for our science. So thank you, Julia.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. So today's a good talk for me too, because I have a lot to learn from today's talks, I think, but it's good to know that the fat on my bottom might be good for me. So thank you, Don. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about philanthropy, and I've given it the little extra title of the meaning of life. Now, I don't want to make you think that I know what the meaning of life is, because I don't, but most of us probably don't, but hopefully some of us come close to figuring out what that might be. And you can see I've got a little picture up here, and it's a very simple picture of the process of life and what people go through, but it is really simple, and for anybody who's lived a few years, they'll know that life is very complicated. It's very complex, and a lot of things happen along the way that change us and change our view of the world and what's important to us. Now, usually, if we're thinking about the meaning of life, most of the time through our lives, we don't have time to think about it. We're too busy. We're busy with our families and raising children and working and doing everything we need to do to really think about it. But I think there are a couple of times in our lives when we do manage to take some time out, and it's probably even forced upon us a little bit to reflect and think about where we are and what we're doing. And it's probably happens when we get a little bit older and we've been through a few things and we're looking at ourselves and we think, oh my gosh, has 10 years gone by? Has 20 years gone by? We think a little bit about where we are and what the point is of our lives. And I think whenever we go through a hurdle or a struggle, whether that's chronic illness, whether that's seeing someone sick or seeing someone pass away, or a divorce, or maybe even a marriage, whatever it is that causes you stress, those are the times when we really think about what's important to us and what the meaning of our life really is. Mark Twain once said there are 2 important days in your life, the day you were born and the day you find out why. And it's probably not a day in itself, it's probably many days or a long period of time that you build up to figuring out why. But we all have the tendency to think about this. So I'm going to give you a little example of how our lives can actually change the way we think about life and the meaning of life. And I'm going to mention my dad, who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, and I miss him greatly. But my dad was born in this beautiful city, and some of you might recognize it. It is Budapest in Hungary. And for anybody who's been there, you will know that it is a beautiful city. It's got so much to offer, so much history. But this is not the city that my dad grew up in. This is the city that my dad grew up in. This is what Budapest looked like when my dad was a young person. And it was very much a childhood of starvation and poverty and sickness and seeing people die and being shot and not having anything except the clothes on your back, and sometimes not even that. And, you know, this is quite a severe type of a history to go through that will definitely shape the meaning of your life. And I know for one that my dad really valued simple things, in life following this, and he was a really happy person too when he was older, because he knew what it was like to be unhappy. My dad very much valued food, which is a good thing to bring up today, so I definitely grew up in a household that loved food. Both my parents knew what it was like to starve, and they didn't want that for us. So I love food, and that's probably why I'm slightly overweight. But I think regardless of our histories and what struggles we've been through, ultimately what we all want is we want happiness. We want to have our families happy. We want to see them like this. Our children and our grandchildren, we want them to be secure and safe and happy. And I believe that these are three keys if we're looking at the meaning of life and what's really important to us. And for anyone who's ever been sick, you'll know how important it is to be healthy. For anyone who has lost hope, has been depressed, has been in a situation of war or has had something taken away from them, you'll understand how important hope is. And obviously you'll understand the importance of happiness for anyone who's ever been sad. And luckily, these tend to kind of equate to each other, because if we have health and we have hope, we're much more fortunate and able to have happiness in our lives and bring happiness to the people around us as well. The really important thing is, I think, in regard to the meaning of life, is that it's not really something I think you have to search for externally. It really is in every single one of us, and we all make our own meanings to our lives. And we do this through our history, through what we've been through what our parents have been through. And we bring our meaning, our purpose, and what the whole point of everything is that we do here, and what we want to bring to the future as well, to our children and to our grandchildren. And, happiness can look very different. It can even look like this. And the way that we bring happiness to our families as well can look different. Some of us are more fun, some of us value education. The things that we want to bring to the future is different, but we all develop that over time. Pablo Picasso once said, "The meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away." And I think once you get to a certain point, you start to realize that you have so much more worth than you might have thought of at one point. There is so much that each of you can actually give and do and give to your families and your grandchildren and the future as well. And this is such an important thing to think about. What do you want to leave behind? What do you want to give to the world? What's important to you? Today, we live in a very different world to what our grandparents or our great-grandparents would have lived in. I know that even with my grandparents, they didn't own their own home. It was owned by someone else. They just lived in it. It was a very day-to-day existence. Today, it's so different. We have so much more. As we get older, we're more likely to see our children thrive, our children settle down, become independent. As older people, we're in a place now where we have more options, more things that we can do and more things that we can give back. And this comes with the responsibility of thinking about, how do you want to give back? How do you want to use all of this great stuff that your great-grandparents would have admired, all of this that you might have? How can you utilize this to assist the future? We have a number of people here who have left a gift in their will for the Garvan, and these are really people who I think have really thought about this and have thought about the meaning of their life and the purpose and what they want to give to people everywhere, to their children and their grandchildren. And they've decided to leave a gift in their will to the Garvan, because ultimately what the Garvan is all about is it's about the future. It's about the generations that are to come. It's about your children and about your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren. We're here to prevent, to cure, and to form better treatments for disease. So what better way to be able to give back and, find that meaning and purpose of your life than to become involved in a medical institute like the Garvan. We're very thankful to all those who have given in their wills. So I really urge you to think about how you can support health and hope and happiness for everybody, for people who are currently going through treatments, for people who will go through treatments in the future, for your family. I really urge you to think about finding a bit more information out about how you can support the Garvan. And you do have forms in your packs, and we know that it's not for everybody, and there is absolutely no pressure because everybody's situation is different. But I really urge you to find out more, to tick that little box in your forms that says, I'd like to know more. And one of our lovely team members would be happy to send you some information about how you could potentially assist the Garvan with providing health, hope, and happiness to the future. So please remember that you are the main character of your life story, and it's important to not just give your audience something to look forward to, but something to be inspired by. And I want to leave you with this little picture, and this is one of my favorite wartime photos, and it's a little boy in Vienna in wartime, and he's just received a new pair of shoes. And I love this photo because it reminds me of my dad and my dad's stories. But I think what it really reminds us of is the simplicity of small gifts. It doesn't have to be complicated. The meaning of our life doesn't have to be complicated. What we give back to the world doesn't have to be complicated. Those simple little things in life, the little pleasures, are actually what make the most impact. And it's for all of us to work together to find what our meaning is and to give back to the community. So thank you so much for listening.